Hello children, in this video we will be learning about all the methods we can use to solve quadratic equations. The methods that we will discuss today include using factorizing when the coefficient a is not equal to 1, by factorizing when the coefficient a is equal to 1, also by factorizing using the difference of two squares, completing the square method, and finally using the quadratic formula. I will explain you step by step each of these methods and how we can apply these methods to solve quadratic equations. Let's start off by learning to solve quadratic equations by factorizing when the coefficient a is not equal to 1 by taking this example. A quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. First of all, let's try to figure out the a, b and c values. In here, a is the coefficient of x squared, or we can easily identify it as the value in front of x squared. So if we look at the above quadratic equation, what is a? The coefficient of x squared, which is 2. So a is equal to 2. If we come to b, b is the coefficient of x, or the value in front of x. In our example quadratic equation, then what is the value of b? The coefficient of x, which is 5. b equal to 5. And finally, c. c is the non-x term of the equation. A non-x term doesn't have an x attached to it. For example, 2x squared has an x term associated. 5x also has an x. But does 3 have an x term? No. So 3 is considered as the non-x term. Therefore, the c value is equal to 3. Now, after identifying the a, b and c values, what we should do is we have to factorize the quadratic equation. In order to do that, what we should first do is we have to multiply the a and c values together. So here, what are the a and c values? The a value is 2 and the c value is 3. So we have to multiply 2 and 3 together. What is 2 times 3? 2 times 3 is 6. And then after that, we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get 6 and also add up to get the b value, which is 5. Now think of two possible numbers. Can we use 6 and 1? Can we use 6 and 1? Because 6 times 1 is 6. But is 6 plus 1 5? No. 6 plus 1 is 7. So we cannot use 6 plus 1. What about 3 and 2? Can we use 3 and 2? We'll see. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, that's correct. And then 3 plus 2? 3 plus 2 is 5. That is also correct. So we can use 3 and 2 as factors. And then after that, what we should do is we had rewrite the equation again. 2x squared plus 5x plus 3 equal 0. And then divide this b term into the two factors that we found here. 3 and 2. But we had write it in terms of x because we are separating 5x, not just 5. So we can separate 5x into the two factors we found, 3x plus 2x. And then after that, we can rewrite the rest of the equation, 2x squared plus 3x plus 2x plus 3 equal to 0. And then after this, we have to separate this equation into two equal halves and then put each half into a pair of brackets. So we can put 2x squared plus 3x, which is the first half, within one pair of brackets, plus 2x plus 3 within the other pair of brackets, equal to 0. And then after that, what we have to do is we have to factorize the first pair of brackets, 2x squared plus 3x. We have to factorize it. How can we factorize it? By taking all the common terms out. So within this pair of brackets, what is the common term? What is common to 2x squared and 3x both? It is x. So we can factor x out of the brackets. X, and what will be remaining inside the brackets? 2x squared divided by x, it is 2x. 3x divided by x, it is just plus 3. Now after that, what we should do is very important. Listen up. We should make the second pair of brackets so that what is inside that pair of brackets is equal to 2x plus 3. We should make what's inside the second pair of brackets be equal to 2x plus 3, which is inside the first pair of brackets. So we had to factorize this pair of brackets in a way that we will get 2x plus 3 within the second pair of brackets. How can we do that? We can just take plus 1 out of the brackets because it is already 2x plus 3. We can take just plus 1 out of the brackets. After this, we have to take what's outside the pair of brackets, x and 1, into one pair of brackets like this, x plus 1. And then what is inside the pair of brackets into another bracket. What is inside the brackets? 2x plus 3. Now can you see why I made what is inside the pair of brackets be equal to each other, 2x plus 3. Then I can factor it out as a common factor and then write it like this, 2x plus 3, because they are the same thing. Now after this we have to solve the equation by equating each of these factors to 0. X plus 1 equal to 0 and 2x plus 3 equal to 0. I am equating each of these brackets to 0 because if one bracket is equal to 0, then if we multiply it by any other number, what will be the result? It will be 0. So here in x plus 1, we can take plus 1 to the other side as minus 1, x equal to minus 1. And in the second solution, we can take plus 3 to the other side as minus 3, 2x equal to minus 3. And then after that, we can divide both sides by 2. Here in the left hand side, 2 and 2 cancel out. X is equal to minus 3 over 2. Those are the final answers. Now let's move on to solving quadratic equations by factorizing when the coefficient a is equal to 1 by taking an example x squared plus 4x minus 5 equal to 0. The quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So in this example, what are the a, b and c values? What is the a value first? A value is the coefficient of x squared. So in the above equation, there is nothing in front of x squared, which means that the coefficient is just 1. So a is equal to 1. And then after that, b is the coefficient of x. In the above equation, the coefficient of x is 4. b is equal to 4. And then finally, c is the non-x term. What is the non-x term here? It is not plus 5, it is minus 5. C is equal to minus 5. Now this is a special case where the coefficient of x squared a is equal to 1. When a is equal to 1, we can use an easier method than our previous method. What we should do is we have to think of two numbers that would multiply to get the c value. What is the c value? It is minus 5. And also would add up to get the b value, which is 4. Think of two numbers that would multiply to get minus 5 and add up to get plus 4. Can we use plus 1 and minus 5? 1 times minus 5 is minus 5. But 1 plus minus 5 is equal to 1 minus 5, which is minus 4. We can't use plus 1 and minus 5. What about minus 1 and plus 5? We'll see. Minus 1 times 5 is minus 5. Okay, that's correct. And then minus 1 plus 5, it is equal to 4. Okay, so now both of the factors are correct. So we can continue. And then after that, it is very simple. What we should do is we have to open up two pairs of brackets like this and equate it to 0. And then put an x term in each of the brackets like this. And after that, put each of the factors that we found here, minus 1 and plus 5, into the pairs of brackets. In the first bracket, I'll put minus 1. And in the second bracket, I will put plus 5. You can exchange it, it doesn't matter. It still gives the same solutions. And after that, what should we do? We should equate each of the brackets and solve for x. Here, x minus 1 is equal to 0 and x plus 5 is equal to 0. In the first equation, we can take minus 1 to the other side as plus 1. X is equal to 1. And in the second solution, we can take plus 5 to the other side as minus 5. X is equal to minus 5. Those are our final answers. Let's move on to our third method of solving quadratic equations by factorizing, which is using the method difference of two squares. In order to apply this method to solve quadratic equations, we should satisfy two conditions. Number one is that both of these terms should be perfect squares. We will see if they are perfect squares when doing this example. And then the second condition is that we should have a negative sign in front of one of the terms. Not both of the terms, only one of the terms. Here we have a negative sign in front of 64. So those are the conditions that we have to use in order to apply difference of two squares. Now let's try to apply this method. In order to apply this method, what we have to do is we have to take square roots of each individual term. 9x squared and 64. We have to take square roots of each of them. if we take the square root of 9x squared, the square root of 9x squared is also equal to the square root of 9 times x squared. Now we can separate this whole square root into two square roots. Square root of 9 multiplied by square root of x, which is the same thing. Now we can simplify. What is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is 3. And what is the square root of x squared? Here we can cancel out the square root and the square sign. So what will be remaining? It will be x. 3x. What about 64? Let's take the square root of 64. The square root of 64 is equal to 8. Why? Because 8 multiplied by 8 is equal to 64. Now can you see that 9x squared and 64 are both perfect squares? Since they are perfect squares, it satisfies our first condition as well. So we can use the difference of two squares method. After we have found the square root of each of the terms, what we should do is open up two pairs of brackets like in the previous method, and then put both the factors in each of the brackets. 3x, 8, 3x, 8, like this. And then after that, put a positive sign in the first pair of brackets and a negative sign in the second pair of brackets. After that, we can equate each of the brackets to 0. 3x plus 8 equal to 0 and 3x minus 8 equal to 0. We can take plus 8 to the other side here as minus 8. 3x equal to minus 8. X equal to minus 8 over 3. That's one solution. And in the second solution, we can take minus 8 to the other side as plus 8. 3x equal to 8. We can divide both sides by 3. Here 3 and 3 cancel out. X is equal to 8 over 3. That's our final answer. Now let me prove you that the factorized form here is basically the same thing as our original equation, which is 9x squared minus 64. In order to do that, we should expand the brackets. First of all, we have to multiply 3x and 3x and 3x and minus 8. And after that, we should multiply plus 8 and 3x and plus 8 by minus 8. So when we multiply and expand the equation, we get 9x squared minus 24x plus 24x minus 64. Now here can you see that plus 24x and minus 24x will cancel out. So what will be remaining? 9x squared minus 64. So what did we get here? We got the original equation, 9x squared minus 64. Therefore we can see that this difference of two squares is also a valid method. Let's move on to completing the square. Completing the square is my favorite way of solving equations. There are many uses of completing the square method. We use it for solving quadratic equations. Also, we can use completing the square method to find roots of a quadratic graph and also its vertex. Let's see how we can use this method to solve equations. In order to apply completing the square method, what we should first of all do is we have to take all the non-x terms to the other side of the equation. Now here in this equation, what is the non-x term? It is plus 3. We have to take plus 3 to the other side of the equation. When we take plus 3 to the other side of the equation, it becomes 4x squared plus 8x equal to plus 3 when taken to the other side of the equation minus 3. And after that, we should make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1 or that there is nothing in front of x squared. But here we have a coefficient in x squared which is 4. So we should try to get rid of that 4. So we can get rid of this 4 by factorizing the left hand side equation and taking 4 out as a common factor. Like this, we are taking 4 out as a common factor. So what is remaining inside the brackets? 4x squared divided by 4, it will be x squared, and plus 8x divided by 4 will be equal to plus 2x equal to minus 3. Now we can simplify the equation further by dividing 4 from each side of the equation like this. So that in the left hand side here 4 and 4 cancel out, which will give us x squared plus 2x. In the right hand side it will be minus 3 over 4. Now after this we have to apply completing the square method. In order to do that, what we should do is, this is very important, listen up, we should take x out of x squared like this, and then half of the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x? The coefficient of x is 2. We have to take half of it, which means that we have to divide it by 2. Plus 2 divided by 2 is plus 1. And then we should add a pair of brackets and square the pair of brackets like this. And then we should rewrite the rest of the equation equal to minus 3 over 4. And then after this, it is very important, listen up, we have to add the square of this term right here, plus 1, to the other side of the equation. What is the square of plus 1? The square of plus 1 is 1 times 1, which is 1. So we can add plus 1 to the other side of the equation like this. I will explain you why in a second after we solve this equation. Now we can simplify this equation further. X plus 1 squared equal to minus 3 over 4 plus 1. In order to simplify this, we have to get a common denominator, which is 4. Here minus 3 over 4 plus 1 is equal to 4 over 4, because 4 divided by 4 is just 1. And then when simplified, we have common denominators, so we can add up the numerators. Minus 3 plus 4 is 1, and then the denominator is 4. Minus 3 over 4 plus 1 is equal to 1 over 4. And then after that, it is very simple. We just have to solve the equation and find the values of x. We have to take square roots from both the sides in order to get rid of the square sign right here. We have to take square roots from both the sides. But remember, in the right hand side, we have to put a plus or minus sign, because square roots can be either positive or negative. For example, let's take 2 squared and also minus 2 squared. What is 2 squared? 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. What about minus 2 squared? Minus 2 squared is equal to minus 2 times minus 2, which is equal to, yet again, plus 4. Therefore, the square roots can be either plus or minus. So we have to put a plus or minus sign in front of the square root on the right hand side. Now in the left hand side, we can cancel out the square root and the square signs. So what's remaining here? X plus 1 is equal to plus or minus. We can take the square root of 1 over 4 by taking the square root of numerator and denominator separately. What is the square root of the numerator? 1. The square root of 1 is 1. And what is the square root of the denominator? 4. The square root of 4 is 2, because 2 times 2 is equal to 4. And then we can solve the equation for x by taking plus 1 to the other side of the equation as minus 1. X is equal to minus 1 plus or minus 1 over 2. We can take two solutions for x by taking the positive root for one solution and the negative root for the other solution. X is equal to minus 1 plus 1 half, and x equal to minus 1 minus 1 half. So what are the final answers for x? Minus 1 plus half will be equal to minus half, and minus 1 minus half is equal to minus 3 over 2. Those are our final answers. Now let's come back to our method and let me explain you why I added a plus 1 here to the right hand side of the equation. In order to do that, let's just see and expand x plus 1 squared. X plus 1 squared is equal to x plus 1 times x plus 1. It is just being multiplied by itself. Now in order to expand x plus 1 and x plus 1 further, we have to multiply x by x and x by 1 like this, and 1 by x and 1 by 1 like this. So here x squared plus x plus 1 times x is x plus 1 times 1 is 1. So now we can add up the x and x terms here, which will give us 2x. X squared plus 2x plus 1. Now can you see that what we got here after the expansion of x plus 1 squared, which is x squared plus 2x plus 1, is very similar to what we got in our original equation, which is x squared plus 2x. They are very similar, but the difference is that this equation has a plus 1 added to it. So if we have put x plus 1 squared here, what we have done is we have not only kept x squared plus 2x as it is, but we also have added an additional 1 to the left hand side of the equation. If we add one thing to one side of the equation only, it will be unbalanced. So in order to balance that equation again, we have to add that added plus 1 to the other side of the equation, just like this. That is the reason why I added the square of this term right here to the other side of the equation. So children, let's move on to the fifth and final method of solving quadratic equations, which is using the quadratic formula. We use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations that we cannot solve by factorizing. This can also be considered as a simplified completing the square method, because it is just a matter of applying the values from a quadratic equation into the quadratic formula and finding the solutions for x. So the quadratic formula looks something like this. X equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Again, repeat after me. X equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Repeat after me for one final time. X equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is what we call the quadratic formula. Let's see how we can use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations by taking an example 5x squared plus 2x minus 2 equal to 0. As we have discussed in the previous methods, a quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. First of all, let's identify the a, b and c values here. Here, a is the coefficient of x squared, or the value in front of x squared. So in our above equation, what is the coefficient of x squared? It is 5. So a is equal to 5. And then b is the coefficient of x, or the value which is in front of x. So in our example equation, what is the b value? It is the coefficient of x, which is 2. b is equal to 2. And then finally, c is the non-x term of the equation. In our example equation, what is the non-x term? It is not plus 2, it is minus 2. c is equal to minus 2. Now that we have identified the values of a, b and c, we have to apply those values into the quadratic formula in order to get the solutions for x. So let's take the quadratic formula part by part and try to apply these values. X equal to negative b. Negative b. Negative b is the b value multiplied by minus 1. Why do we say that it is being multiplied by minus 1? Because can you see that here in the quadratic formula, there is a negative sign in front of b. It means that we are multiplying by minus 1. So what is our b value here? Here the b value is 2. So 2 multiplied by minus 1 is minus 2. Plus or minus the square root of b squared. B squared is the b value squared. So what is our b value here? It is 2. So it will be 2 squared. Minus 4ac. Minus 4ac means minus 4 multiplied by the a value multiplied by the c value. So minus 4 multiplied by the a value, which is 5, multiplied by the c value, which is minus 2, over 2a. 2a means 2 multiplied by the a value. What is the a value here? It is 5. 2 multiplied by 5. Now we can simplify this equation further to find the solutions of x. First of all, let's multiply 2 squared minus 4 times 5 times minus 2. What is 2 squared? 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. Minus 4 times 5. Minus 4 times 5 is minus 20. And then minus 20 times minus 2, it is plus 40. 40 plus 40 is equal to 44. So we can rewrite this equation minus 2 plus or minus the square root of, now that we have multiplied the inside parts of the square root, we can rewrite it square root of 44 over 2 times 5, it is 10. Now let's see if we can simplify what's inside the square root further. Here we have square root of 44. Now we can see that 44 is equal to 11 times 4. So we can rewrite it as square root of 4 times 11. Since 4 and 11 are being multiplied, we can split this square root into two square roots like this. Square root of 4 and square root of 11. Now we have a perfect square root here. The square root of 4. We know that there is a square root of 4. What is the square root of 4? It is 2. So we can simplify this. Since the square root of 4 is 2, we can rewrite it as 2. We can't take the square root of 11, so we just rewrite it as square root of 11 like this. So the square root of 44 when simplified is also equal to 2 square root of 11. So we can simplify this further. Minus 2 plus or minus 2 root 11 over 10. Now can you see that here all the terms in this expression are divisible by 2. Here there's minus 2, here there's a 2, and then here there's a 10. All these terms are divisible by 2. So what we can do is, since 2 is common to all of them, divide all of them by 2. X equal to, what is minus 2 divided by 2? Minus 2 divided by 2 is minus 1. Plus or minus 2 root 11 divided by 2. What will it be equal to? Square root of 11 over 10 divided by 2 is 5. So now here we can see that there is a positive square root and also a negative square root. So we can get two solutions by taking the positive square root for one solution and the negative square root for the other solution. So if we take the positive square root for one solution, what will it be equal to? X will be equal to minus 1 plus square root of 11 over 5. And what if we take the negative square root? If we take the negative square root, x will be equal to minus 1 minus the square root of 11 over 5. You can also keep these solutions as decimals. If we keep the first solution here, x is equal to 0.463, correct to three significant figures. And then here in the second solution, x is equal to minus 0.863. You can keep it in either way you want, but I prefer to keep it in fraction form because it is more accurate than rounding off in decimal form. So now let's move on to some questions regarding solving quadratic equations. Starting with our first question, which is 2x squared plus 6x equal to 0. Now here we can see that 2 is common to both the terms in our equation, because 2x squared is divisible by 2 and also 6x is divisible by 2. And also we can see that x here is common to both the terms as well, because both of the terms has an x in it. So we know that x is a common term as well. So now since we know that 2 and x are common, we can factorize 2x out of the left hand side of the equation like this. 2x squared divided by 2x like this. What will be remaining? 2 and 2 here cancels out and x here, and 1x from x squared cancels out. So what is remaining? X is remaining. Like that, what is plus 6x divided by 2x? It will be plus 3 equal to 0. Now what we can do is we can equate each of these terms to 0. Here 2x is equal to 0 and x plus 3 is equal to 0. So what will be the solutions? Here we can divide both the sides by 2. Still x will be equal to 0. And in the second equation, we can take plus 3 to the other side as minus 3. So x will be equal to minus 3. Those are our final answers. Let's move on to our second question, which is 4x squared plus 8x plus 3 equal to 0. First of all, let's look at the coefficient of x squared 4. Is the coefficient of x squared equal to 1? No. So we cannot use factorizing when the coefficient a is not equal to 1. So the other methods remaining are using factorizing or using the quadratic formula or completing the square method. First of all, I'll try to do it using factorizing. Now a quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. If we identify the a, b and c terms here, a is the coefficient of x squared, which is equal to 4. And then b is the coefficient of x, or the value in front of x. Here it is 8. b is equal to 8. And c is the non-x term of the equation, which is equal to 3. Now when the coefficient of x squared is not equal to 1, when a is not equal to 1, what should we do? We should multiply the a and c values together. We should multiply the a and c values together. What is the a value here? 4. Multiplied by the c value, which is 3. 4 multiplied by 3 is equal to 12. After that, we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get 12 and would add up to get the b value. What is the b value here? It is 8. Would add up to get the b value, which is 8, like this. So now think of two numbers. Can we use 4 and 3? Let's see if we can use 4 and 3. Can we use 4 and 3? Because 4 multiplied by 3 is 12. But is 4 plus 3 equal to 8? No, 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. So we cannot use 4 and 3. What about 6 and 2? 6 multiplied by 2 is equal to 12. Okay, that's correct. 6 plus 2 is equal to 8. Okay, that is also correct. So we can use 6 and 2 as the factors. Now after this, we can rewrite the b term in terms of the factors that we found here, 6 and 2. So we can rewrite it as plus 6x plus 2x. And then after that, we can rewrite the rest of the equation, 4x squared plus 3 equal to 0. And after this, what did I ask you to do? We had to split the equation into two halves like this. So what will be there after we split the equation into two halves and separate it into brackets? 4x squared plus 6x in one pair of brackets plus 2x plus 3 within the other pair of brackets equal to 0. And then after that, what should we do? We should factorize each pair of brackets. So let's factorize the first pair of brackets here. Now we can see 2 and x are both common factors for both of the terms. Because 4 and 6, they are divisible by 2, and x squared and x are divisible by x. So we can factorize 2x out of the brackets like this. So what will be remaining inside the brackets? 4x squared divided by 2x, it will be 2x. Plus 6x divided by 2x, it will be equal to plus 3. So after that, what should we do? We should factorize the second pair of brackets so that what's inside the brackets when factorized will be equal to 2x plus 3. So now we can see that the brackets are already 2x plus 3. So we can just take plus 1 out as a common factor. So what will be remaining inside the brackets? 2x plus 3. And then we can rewrite the rest of the equation equal to 0. Now we can rewrite what is inside the brackets within one pair of brackets and what is outside the brackets within another pair of brackets. So what is outside the brackets here? It is 2x plus 1. We write it within one pair of brackets. And what is inside the brackets? 2x plus 3. We write it in another pair of brackets like this. Now we can equate both of the brackets to 0. 2x plus 1 equal to 0. And then 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Now we can solve these equations individually. We can take plus 1 to the other side of the equation as minus 1. 2x equal to minus 1. And then we can divide both the sides by 2. X is equal to minus 1 over 2. And then in our other equation, we can take plus 3 to the other side as minus 3. 2x is equal to minus 3. And then after that, we can divide both sides by 2. X equal to minus 3 over 2. Those are the final answers. Let's move on to our third question, which is 3x squared minus 6x minus 9 equal to 0. So now here instantly we can see that 3 is a common factor to all the three terms. 3x squared is divisible by 3, and then minus 6x is divisible by 3, and then minus 9 is also divisible by 3. We can take 3 out as a common factor, so what will be remaining inside the brackets? 3x squared divided by 3, x squared, minus 6x divided by 3, minus 2x, minus 9 divided by 3, minus 3, equal to 0. Now after that, we can divide both sides by 3. Still, if we divide both the sides by 3, we'll be remaining with x squared minus 2x minus 3 equal to 0. Now can you see that here the coefficient of x squared is 1. First of all, let's try to solve this equation using factorizing when a is equal to 1. Since a is equal to 1, we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get the c value, which is minus 3, and then would add up to get the b value, which is minus 2. Like this. We should think of two numbers. So what can the two numbers be? Can we use minus 1 times 3? Because minus 1 times 3 is equal to minus 3. But minus 1 plus 3 is equal to not minus 2, it is equal to plus 2. So we cannot use them. What about minus 3 times plus 1? Because minus 3 times plus 1 is equal to minus 3 as well. And also minus 3 plus 1 is equal to minus 2. So we can use these two terms, minus 3 and 1. The two factors are minus 3 and 1. And now after that, what should we do? In special cases where a is equal to 1, we can open up two separate pairs of brackets like this, equate it to 0. And then we can add an x term for each of the brackets. And then after that, we should add one factor to each of the brackets. So what are the factors that we found here? Minus 3 and plus 1. So we can add minus 3 to one pair of brackets and plus 1 to the other pair of brackets like this. And then after that, what we should do is we have to solve the equation by equating each of the brackets to 0. X minus 3 is equal to 0. X plus 1 is equal to 0. Now in order to solve this, what should we do? We can take minus 3 to the other side as plus 3. X equal to 3. That is one solution. And the other solution, we can take plus 1 to the other side as minus 1. X is equal to minus 1. That is our other solution. Those are the final answers. Let's move on to our fourth question. X squared minus 8x plus 16 equal to 0. So now here also we can see that the coefficient of x squared a is equal to 1 because there is nothing in front of x squared. So first of all, let's try to solve this equation by factorizing. Now what do we have to do? We should think of two numbers that would multiply to get the c value, and then two numbers that would add up to get the b value. What is the b value here? It is minus 8, not plus 8, minus 8. What about 8 times 2? because 8 times 2 is equal to 16. But is 8 plus 2 equal to minus 8? No, 8 plus 2 is equal to 10. So we cannot use 8 and 2. What do you think about 4 times 4? Can we use 4 times 4? Because 4 times 4 is equal to 16. But is 4 plus 4 equal to minus 8? No, 4 plus 4 is equal to plus 8. So instead of using plus 4 and plus 4, we'll try to use minus 4 and minus 4. Because minus 4 times minus 4 is yet again equal to 16. And also minus 4 plus minus 4 is equal to minus 8. So we can use the two factors minus 4 and minus 4 like this. Now since the coefficient a is equal to 1, what do we have to do? We have to add two pairs of brackets like this, equate it to 0. And within those brackets we have to put x's like this. And then the terms that we found here, minus 4 and minus 4. Now can you see that here both the factors that we got, minus 4 and minus 4, they are the same. So what we can do is we can write a simplified form here, x minus 4, because x minus 4 is the same in both the terms, squared like this, because it is the same value that is being multiplied by itself, equal to 0. Now even if we take square roots from both the sides, in this side square root and square cancels out. But in the right hand side, can we take a square root of 0? No, the square root of 0 is just 0. So x minus 4 is equal to just 0. And then after that we can get the only solution for x by taking minus 4 to the other side as plus 4. X is equal to 4. That is our final answer. Let's move on to our fifth question, which is 2x squared minus 27 equal to 0. Now instantly here as well we can see that 3x squared is divisible by 3. And also minus 27 is divisible by 3 as well. Why? Because minus 27 divided by 3 is equal to minus 9. So what can we do? We can factorize 3 out of the equation like this. So what will be remaining inside the brackets? 3x squared divided by 3, x squared, and minus 27 divided by 3, as we mentioned before, minus 9 equal to 0. Now even if we divide both the sides by 3 like this, would it matter? In the left hand side 3 and 3 cancels out, and in the right hand side 0 and 3, 0 divided by 3 will be equal to just 0. So x squared minus 9 will still be equal to 0. Now after this, what can we do to solve this equation? Now can you see that both x squared and 9 are perfect squares, because x times x is x squared and 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And also we can see that there is a negative sign in front of one term. So what method can we use? We can use the difference of two squares. How can we use the difference of two squares? We have to get the square root of each term. Square root of x squared and the square root of 9. What is the square root of x squared? Here the square and square root signs cancel out. It will be equal to x. And what is the square root of 9? It is 3, because 3 times 3 is equal to 9. And after that, what should we do? We should open up two pairs of brackets like this and equate it to 0. And then after that, we should put x and 3, both of them in each of the brackets like this. X, 3, x, 3. And then what is the next step? Simple. We have to put plus in one pair of brackets and minus within the other pair of brackets. Then we can equate both the brackets to 0. X plus 3 equal to 0 and x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we can solve the two equations. We can take plus 3 to the other side as minus 3. X equal to minus 3. That is one answer. And in the other equation, we can take minus 3 to the other side as plus 3. X equal to plus 3. Those are the final answers to our quadratic equation. Let's move on to our sixth question. 4x squared minus 16 equals to 0. Now that you have enough practice with quadratic equations, we can easily recognize here that 4 is common to both of these terms. 4 is common to 4x squared and 4 is common to 16 as well, because 16 is divisible by 4. So what can we do? As usual, we can factorize 4 out of the equation. What is remaining within the brackets? 4x squared divided by 4, it will be x squared. Minus 16 divided by 4 is equal to minus 4, equal to 0. Now again, even if we divide both the sides of the equation by 4, it won't matter, it won't affect to the equation, because 0 divided by 4 is still equal to 0. So x squared minus 4 equal to 0 when we divide 4 from both the sides. Now can you see that here x squared is a perfect square and also 4 is a perfect square because 2 squared is 2 times 2 which is equal to 4. And also there is a negative sign in front of one of the terms. So what method can we apply? Again, difference of two squares. How can we apply difference of two squares? Take square root of both the terms. Square root of x squared and square root of 4. What is the square root of x squared? Here square root and square signs cancel out. It will be x remaining. And what is the square root of 4? It will be 2. And then after that, what do we have to do? Open up two pairs of brackets in difference of two squares equal to 0. And put both of the terms that we found into each of the brackets. X, 2, x, 2 like this. And then in one pair of brackets we are putting positive sign, and in the other pair of brackets we are putting the negative sign in. Then after that we can equate each of the brackets to 0. X plus 2 equal to 0 and x minus 2 equal to 0. We can take plus 2 to the other side of the equation as x equal to minus 2. That is one solution. And in the other equation we can take minus 2 to the other side as plus 2. So x will be equal to plus 2. Those are our final answers. Let's move on to our seventh question, which is 3x squared plus 6x minus 4 equal to 0. First of all, let's see if we can solve this equation by factorizing. What do we have to do now? We have to multiply the a and c values together. The a value is 3 and the c value is minus 4. Minus 4 times 3 is equal to minus 12. Now we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get minus 12 and would add up to get plus 6. Try to think of two numbers. No matter how hard you try, you won't be able to find two factors that would multiply to get minus 12 and would add up to get plus 6. Since there are no factors that we can use, we cannot use the factorizing method. Instead, we have to use completing the square method or the quadratic formula. We will do this using completing the square method, and you can try to solve it using the quadratic formula as well at home. So what do we have to do in completing the square method? Can you remember? We have to take all the non-x terms to the other side of the equation. What is the non-x term here in this equation? It is minus 4. We have to take minus 4 to the other side of the equation. So what will be remaining in the left hand side of the equation? 3x squared plus 6x equal to, when we take minus 4 to the other side of the equation, it will be plus 4. And after that, what should we do? We should make sure that the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. But in this example, what is the coefficient of x squared? It is equal to 3 and not 1. So what should we do? We should try to get rid of that 3. How can we get rid of that 3? We can factorize it out from the left hand side of the equation. When we factorize it out, what is remaining within the brackets? 3x squared divided by 3, it is equal to x squared. Plus 6x divided by 3, it will be equal to plus 2x equal to 4. Now we can simplify this equation further by dividing both sides by 3 like this. In the left hand side, 3 and 3 cancels out. So what will be remaining? X squared plus 2x equal to, and then on the right hand side, 4 divided by 3 stays as it is. And after that, what should we do? We should use completing the square method to find the solutions for x. How can we do that? Take x out of x squared like this, and then half of the b value or the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x here? It is plus 2. We can divide it by 2 in order to take half. Plus 2 divided by 2 is equal to plus 1. And then after that, we can add a pair of brackets and square the whole thing. Equal to 4 over 3. And now we should add the square of this term right here to the right hand side of the equation. Plus 1 squared is equal to 1. Now what can we do here? We can simplify the right hand side of the equation. 4 over 3 plus 1. Now in order to simplify this further, what we can do is we can keep 4 over 3 as it is and get a common denominator 3. Here we can write 1 as 3 over 3. Why? Because 3 over 3 is equal to 3 divided by 3 and it is equal to 1. So now that we have two common denominators, we can add up the numerators. 4 plus 3 is equal to 7. 7 over 3 like this. So we can simplify the equation further. X plus 1 squared is equal to 7 over 3. And after that, what should we do? We have to take square root of both the sides of the equation. But remember, we have to put a plus or minus sign on the right hand side because square roots can be either positive or negative. Now we can simplify this equation further. Here square root and square signs cancel out. What will be remaining? X plus 1 equal to plus or minus square root of 7 over 3. Now after that, what should we do? We have to take minus 1 to the other side in order to find the solutions for x. X equal to minus 1 plus or minus square root of 7 over 3. So from this we can get two solutions by taking positive square root for one solution and the negative square root for the other solution. If we take the positive square root, we get x equal to minus 1 plus square root of 7 over 3. And for the negative square root, we get x equal to minus 1 minus square root of 7 over 3. Those are the final answers. Let's move on to the 8th question, which is 2x squared plus 3x minus 6 equal to 0. First of all, let's see if we can solve this using factorizing. Now, in order to solve this using factorizing, we should multiply the a and c terms together. What are the a and c terms? 2 and not plus 6, minus 6. 2 multiplied by minus 6. 2 multiplied by minus 6 is equal to minus 12. Now we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get minus 12 and would add up to get the b value. What is the b value? 3. But no matter how hard you try, you cannot get two factors that would satisfy both our conditions. So we have to use either completing the square method or the quadratic formula. So I'll use completing the square method for this question as well. You can try to do this question using the quadratic formula as well at home. So in order to apply completing the square method, what do we have to do? Take all the non-x terms to the other side of the equation. We can take minus 6 to the other side of the equation as plus 6. 2x squared plus 3x equal to 6. Now what should we do? We should make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1, or that there is nothing in front of x squared. But here there is a 2 in front of x squared. So what should we do? We should get rid of that 2. In order to get rid of that 2, we can factorize 2 out of the left hand side of the equation. When we factorize 2 out of the left hand side of the equation, what will be remaining? 2x squared divided by 2 will be equal to x squared. And then plus 3x divided by 2 will be equal to 3 over 2x equal to 6. Now we can simplify this equation further by dividing both the sides by 2 in order to get rid of the 2 on the left hand side. Here 2 and 2 cancels out. And then x squared plus 3 over 2x equal to 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Now we can use completing the square method to solve this equation. We have to take x out of x squared, and then after that we should take half of the coefficient of x. What is the coefficient of x? The b value, 3 over 2. We should take half of it. How can we take half of 3 over 2? It means that we have to divide 3 over 2 by 2. We can convert this division sign into a multiplication sign and then take the reciprocal of 2. Here we can rewrite 3 over 2 as it is, and then we can simplify by multiplying the denominators and the numerators. 3 multiplied by 1 is 1, 2 multiplied by 2 is 4. So when we divide 3 over 2 by 2, it will be 3 over 4, like this. And now we can add a pair of brackets and square the whole thing, equal to 3. Now we have to add the square of this term right here to the other side of the equation. What is the square of 3 over 4? We have to take squares of numerator and denominator individually. 3 squared is 9 and 4 squared is 16. So we can add 9 over 16 to the other side of the equation like this. Now we can simplify the left hand side of the equation even further by adding up 3 and 9 over 16. First of all, we have to get a common denominator. The common denominator here will be 16. Here 3 is equal to 3 over 1. Now in order to get a common denominator of 16, we have to multiply numerator and denominator both by 16. 3 times 16 in the numerator is equal to 48. And the 16 will be in the denominator. So in the numerators we have 48 plus 9. And then after that we can add up the numerators. 48 plus 9 is equal to 57 over 16. So now we can simplify here. X plus 3 over 4 squared is equal to here 57 over 16. Now after that we can take square roots from both the sides. And then remember we have to put plus or minus in the right hand side because the square root can be either plus or minus. Now here square and square root signs cancel out. So what will be remaining? X plus 3 over 4 is equal to plus or minus. We can take the square root of the denominator here. What is the denominator? 16. And what is the square root of 16? The square root of 16 is equal to 4. And then we can rewrite the numerator part. We cannot take the square root of the numerator part, so we have to rewrite it as 57 square root. Now what can we do? We can take plus 3 over 4 to the other side of the equation as minus 3 over 4. X is equal to minus 3 over 4 plus or minus the square root of 57 over 4. Now since we have a common denominator, we can simplify this even further by adding up the numerators. Minus 3 plus or minus the square root of 57 over the denominator, which is 4. So we can get two solutions for x by taking positive square root for one solution and the negative square root for the other solution. If we take positive square root, we have minus 3 plus square root of 57 over 4. And then for the other solution, we have x equal to minus 3 minus 57 over 4. Those are the final answers. Let's try to answer our ninth question. 3x squared minus 10x minus 7 equal to 0. First of all, let's check if we can factorize them. What should we do? We have the a and c terms right here. The a term is 3 and the c term is minus 7. We should multiply the a and c terms together. 3 times minus 7. 3 times minus 7 is equal to minus 21. Now we should think of two numbers that would multiply to get minus 21 and would add up to get the b value. What is the b value? It is not plus 10, it is minus 10. Would add up to get the b value, which is minus 10. But yet again, no matter how hard you try, you cannot find two factors that would satisfy both the conditions. So we have to use either completing the square method or the quadratic formula. Now I will use the quadratic formula since I have done completing the square method for the previous two questions. And you can now try to do completing the square method by your own at home. So how can we use the quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations? We have to identify the a, b and c values first. A quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. So here if we try to identify the a, b and c values, a is equal to 3 and then b is equal to, not plus 10, b is equal to minus 10. b is equal to minus 10. And then finally c is equal to, not plus 7, c is equal to minus 7. c is equal to minus 7. Now what can we do? We can apply these values a, b and c into the quadratic formula. What is the quadratic formula again? Repeat after me. X equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the quadratic formula. Let's try to apply these values into the quadratic formula part by part. X equal to negative b. Negative b means the b value multiplied by minus 1. Now here the b value is minus 10. So we have to multiply minus 10 by minus 1 like this. And then after that we have plus or minus the square root of b squared means the b value squared. Here the b value is minus 10. So minus 10 squared. Minus 4ac means minus 4 multiplied by the a value which is 3 multiplied by the c value which is minus 7. Over 2a means 2 multiplied by the a value which is 3. Now we can try to simplify this expression even further. X equal to, here minus 10 multiplied by minus 1 will be equal to plus 10. Plus or minus, we can simplify what is inside the square root. Minus 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times minus 7. Minus 10 squared is equal to minus 10 times minus 10 which is equal to 100. Minus 4 times 3 is equal to minus 12. And then minus 12 multiplied by minus 7 is equal to plus 84. When we add them up together, we get 184. So we can rewrite what's inside the square root of 184. Over 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Let's see if we can simplify what's inside the square root even further. We have square root of 184. We can rewrite the square root of 184 as square root of 4 times 46. And now we can split this single square root into two square roots like this. Square root of 4 times square root of 46. Now can you see that here we have square root of 4. 4 is a perfect square. So we can get the square root of 4 which is 2. And then we can keep it in third form. 2 square root of 46. We keep square root of 46 as it is because we cannot get a square root of 46. So we can simplify this equation even further. 10 plus or minus 2 square root of 46 over 6. Now can you see that here all the terms in the expression 10, 2 and 6. All of them are divisible by 2. So what can we do? We can divide all of them by 2. So here when we divide everything by 2, we get x equal to 10 divided by 2 is 5, plus or minus 2 root 46 divided by 2 will be just square root of 46 over 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Now we can get two solutions by taking the positive square root for one solution and the negative square root for the other solution. So if we take the positive square root, we get x equal to 5 plus square root of 46 over 3. And then if we take the negative square root, we get x equal to 5 minus square root of 46 over 3. Those are the final answers. And finally, let's move on to the 10th and final question of this really long lesson. 3x squared plus 2x plus 1 equal to 0. First of all, let's see if we can solve this equation by factorizing. So first of all, we have to multiply the a and c values together. Here the a value is 3 and the c value is 1. 3 times 1 is 3. Now we have to think of two numbers that would multiply to get 3 and would add up to get the b value, which is 2. But again, no matter how hard you try, you cannot get two factors that will satisfy both of these conditions. Two numbers that would add up to get 2 and would multiply to get 3. So instead of factorizing, we have to use completing the square method or the quadratic formula. I will use the quadratic formula to solve this equation, as we have already done two questions on completing the square. But you can also try to solve this question using completing the square method at home. So how can we solve this equation using the quadratic formula? First of all, we have to identify the a, b and c values. Here what is the a value? The coefficient of x squared, 3. A is equal to 3. And then b is the coefficient of x. Here the b value is 2. And then c is the non-next term. The non-next term here is 1. After that, we have to apply a, b and c values into the quadratic formula. X equal to negative b. Negative b means the b value multiplied by minus 1. So here the b value is 2. 2 multiplied by minus 1 is minus 2. Plus or minus the square root of b squared is the b term squared. So here the b term squared is 2 squared. Minus 4ac. Minus 4ac is minus 4 multiplied by the a value, which is 3, multiplied by the value of c, which is 1, over 2a means 2 multiplied by the a value, 3. Now we can simplify this equation further. Let's simplify what's inside the square root. 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 1. What is 2 squared? 2 squared is 2 times 2, which is 4. And then minus 4 times 3 is minus 12. Minus 12 times 1 is yet again minus 12. So here minus 12, and then 4 minus 12 will be equal to minus 8. So we can rewrite this equation minus 2 plus or minus. We can simplify the part inside the square root of minus 8 over 2 times 3, the denominator, it is 6. So let's see if we can simplify the square root further. We have minus 8 inside the square root. So we can rewrite the square root of minus 8 as the square root of 4 times 2 times minus 1. Now after this, we can separate the whole square root into 3 smaller square roots. Square root of 4 times square root of 2 times the square root of minus 1. Now as you can see, the first square root, the square root of 4. 4 is a perfect square. So we can get the square root of that. What is the square root of 4? The square root of 4 is 2. And then we can't get the square root of 2, so we just keep it as it is. And finally, the square root of minus 1. Minus 1 is a negative value, and we cannot take square roots of negative values. Because of this, the square root that we will be getting is an imaginary number. And in this case, the square root of minus 1. The square root of minus 1 is equal to what we call I. I is an imaginary number, which means that numbers like this don't exist in real life. So when we simplify the square root of minus 8 further, we get 2 square root of 2i. So now we can rewrite the equation again. Minus 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 2i over 6. So now can you see here? Minus 2, 2 root 2i, and then also 6. All the three terms are divisible by 2. So what can we do in order to simplify the equation further? We can divide all the terms by 2. X equal to minus 2 divided by 2 is minus 1, plus or minus 2 root 2i divided by 2, it will give us root 2i, over 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. So after that, we can get two solutions by taking positive square root into one solution and the negative square root into the other solution. For the positive square root, we get x equal to minus 1 plus root 2i over 3. And then if we take the negative square root, we get x equal to minus 1 minus root of 2y over 3. So these are the final answers to this equation. But because we get an imaginary number here, square root of 2y, it is an imaginary number. We can say that this equation has no real roots. This equation has no real roots because the solutions to these equations are not actual numbers. They are just imaginary numbers. They don't exist in real life. So there are no real solutions to this equation. So children, that is the end of today's really long lesson. I hope that you understood what I explained to you today. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section down below. Please like the video if you understood what I explained to you today, and subscribe to my channel for more maths, physics and chemistry lessons. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video where we will be starting chemistry lessons in this channel. Bye bye.